Everybody, welcome to Real Words. I'm Rayanne Thorn Krueger, producer and host of this pretty new podcast. It's only been a couple of weeks going, and I'm really excited to continue my series on Beach Town Books
Mhm.
pop-up author event that's happening this weekend. And today I have a very special guest. Matthew Arnold Stern is my guest today, and Matthew will be appearing at Beach Town Books on Sunday, the
Mhm.
21st of April. Matthew, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here with you today.
Such a pleasure. If you could, please give us a brief intro about yourself and what brings you to this point.
Well, I started writing in high school. I was going through some typical teenage stuff and started writing a personal journal. And my English teacher, Darlene Loyler, read my writing and said, you have some real talent there, and I encourage you to develop it. And I got involved with the creative writing magazine at school and the school newspaper and have been writing ever since. And I've done a lot of different things with my writing. I've been a continue to work as a technical writer. I've been in technology for 40 years, but it was always my dream to write novels. So I wrote my first one in 2005 and self-published it. And then in 2021, I published my most recent novel, which is The Remainders, which is one of the books that I'll be showing at Beachtown Books.
Great. Wow. So you have been a technical writer, basically a
Mhm.
copywriter, product. Are you writing about product?
Yes, I write those
Yes.
instruction books that people don't read until something goes wrong.
Until they need it. Yes,
Yeah,
familiar. It's like the jumper cables that sit in your
yes.
trunk or not in your trunk when you need them. So
Mhm.
I appreciate that kind of writing. I have done that myself. So to balance between technical writing or nonfiction.
Mhm.
And I know that you've written a book about some tips, table talk tips. I want to hear more about that too. And
Certainly.
now to write, I'm assuming The Remainders is a fiction.
Yes, it is.
And had this idea been around for a while, or what was the inspiration for The Remainders?
Well, it came about in 2016. We were going through some difficulties in our family, and there were some challenges that forced me to reassess a lot of things that were going on in my life at the time. And I usually write about things where I have some sort of challenge or some issue or question thing that I'm dealing with, and The Remainders was what is one of those books. And it's about
Wonderful.
a homeless son and a troubled father who have to work through a lot of past traumas in order to reconnect with each other through Southern California. So the remainders came from that experience.
Such an interesting topic, and many people are dealing with that type of separation from their children, feeling the estrangement, as
Mhm.
well as modern psychiatry that has encouraged creating boundaries
Yeah,
and individuals trying to walk on those boundaries and still have relationships. So I look forward to reading your book and
thank
gaining more understanding as I myself, a mother of four grown children and
you.
four
Mhm.
grown stepchildren, a lot of young adults in my life that have created boundaries, and I've come to a place of understanding and appreciation for that. And I appreciate you sharing this in this format. So I look forward to reading
Mhm.
The Remainders. Your journey to become a writer started in creative writing in high school. I'm
Mhm.
assuming it was high school.
Yeah.
And I had similar experience myself, joining a creative writing class. And do you have any advice for young or new writers based on that experience or the experience, your current experiences now writing fictional, a fictional novel?
Well, I think one of the things that's important is that we avoid the term aspiring writer, because a lot of people will say when they're starting out, they're aspiring writers. And the thing that I learned is that if you write, you're a writer. And it's very important that we claim that title for ourselves, because when we say we're an aspiring writer, if we don't reach some sort of milestone like getting an agent or getting picked
Right.
up by a big five publisher, then we're not a real author. And if you don't reach those type of arbitrary goals, then you're going to give up. But when you claim that you're a writer, you're going to do whatever you need in order to develop your skills. You're going to learn, you're going to experiment, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to get tons and tons and tons of rejection, but you're going to persist because you know in your heart that you're a writer. And when I claimed that title for myself, that really kept me going through a lot of challenging times in developing my craft and finding an audience. And so it's very important that if you're a writer, you have to remember if you're a writer, then you're a writer, whether you get published or even finish a manuscript or not.
I really appreciate that. I started writing poetry very young, wrote a first song, never forayed into songwriting, but wrote a
Mhm.
first song at the age of 8, playing it on my guitar, and it was about unrequited love as an 8-year-old,
Mhm.
right? And so those early feelings of emotional feelings of wanting to be connected.
Yes.
And I think that many writers, and I hear this from you and through your book, The Remainders, desire connection, that feeling of belonging. And this is our way, this is our contribution as a writer, this is our way to contribute to those feelings that are inside of us, and perhaps helping others recognize that they're not alone, that it's okay to have these feelings. So I really appreciate that definition, that advice. Really, there is no aspiring writer. I used to say when I first started blogging 20 years ago on MySpace, if you can imagine,
Yeah.
my very first blog took place on MySpace. And I used to say everybody should write, maybe not everybody should publish. And I disagree with that now,
Yeah.
because through publishing is how you grow and you learn. And today, now we have the controversy of if you're self published or if you're published by the big five, as you mentioned. So, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that wants to write, wants to be published, and can't get picked up? Should they go ahead and self publish?
Absolutely. That's how I started. My first few books were self-published, and the Mastering Table Topics is self-published. And
Wonderful.
there are a lot of advantages to being self-published. It's not just the rejection or avoiding rejection, although when you self-publish, you have to be willing to reject your own work, because you
True.
might take a look at something you've written and said, this is not something that I would want to put out into the world. So, but
I appreciate that.
what's great about self-publishing is you have creative control. You control everything from cover design to how it's marketed to certainly the type of content that you provide. And the thing that you do have to remember, that if you self-publish, you basically take on all of the jobs and responsibilities of any publishing house. So you'd have to hire an editor and a cover designer and an interior designer. You will have to figure out your distribution. You'll have to get ISBNs. So you might also have to look at what your pricing is. So you have to remember that if you're going to be self-published, you have to take on all of those duties.
That's a lot. It's a lot more
Yes,
than most people think. It's not just creating a manuscript and submitting it to
that's right.
a printer. It's much more than that. So I appreciate that insight. You,
I do want to
I
add, I'm sorry,
no,
before we
please
go
go
on,
on.
sorry.
Please go on.
I also want to point out that there's a big field of small presses. My two novels, the Amiga and The Remainders, were published by Black Rose Writing, which is a independent press in Texas. And there's a wide range of small presses out there who are looking for a wide variety of books. There may be small presses that focus on particular genres. So the choices aren't either be self-published, or get picked up by a big five. There's a wide range of ways that you can get your book out there in the market. And what's great about these small presses is that they do take on a lot of the responsibilities that you would have to do for yourself if you self-publish. Like Black Rose Writing has a great cover designer,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
they have a lot of resources in terms of marketing and connections with various publications that might not be available or might be harder to get if you self-publish. So there's a wide range of options out there to get your book in front of the public.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your experience and thank you for that insight. It will be very helpful to
Hmm.
individuals that are wondering what should I do and do I have to go to a big publisher? Can I self-publish? So, thank you
Yes.
for sharing that insight. I have always asked my guests in the Real Words Forum about technology today.
Yeah.
And you were interesting to message me privately and contribute. I have written about this very topic.
Yeah.
And so I would love for you to address here. I have an expressed concern about the loss of creativity, the loss of appreciation for word artists. That's what I'm going to
Hmm.
call
Yeah.
writers because it does require creativity. It does require a way to pattern, a way to formulate, a way to put together a magical string of words that either elicits emotion or fear or anger or curiosity or whatever your choice is as a writer, as a creator. I have a fear that this inner creator is at risk of extermination, of becoming extinct, because there will be opportunity to just create by typing one word or asking a question. And it will not be a human, of course, it will be based on human creations in the past. But if I fear the loss of original thought, and I've had others say to me, well, there really original thought? Don't all original thoughts come from somewhere else? Aren't they gathered in your brain, in the creator's brain, because they've heard, read, seen something else? And of course that's true, but each of us has a way to connect dots differently. We're all
Hmm.
very different. And so I would love for you to share your insight of how you feel about technology, in particular AI, ChatGPT, Gemini,
Hmm.
formerly known as Bard, anything out there that allows multiple artificial words strung
Yeah.
together. I mean, I love the idea of real words. And
Yeah.
this project came to me because I don't want to lose that.
Yes.
So if you could share how your feelings are right now.
Okay, I would be happy to do that. And because I've been working with technology for 40 years.
Right.
And the question always comes up whenever some new form of technology comes up, like even with the first word processors, and then the advent of grammar checkers, spelling checkers. Are we losing a certain amount of creativity? And with generative AI, I know there's a bigger concern because it can create whole images and whole books even just
Right.
by entering a prompt. And I've done also some research into generative AI for my job. And somebody said something that AI makes a good parrot. It's very good at repeating things that it hears, but it doesn't offer insight. It doesn't offer any new ways of looking at things. And it doesn't provide the type of emotional connection that you mentioned that I think is necessary for art.
Agreed.
There are some ways that generative AI can make our work easier for us as authors. The post that Rayanne was talking about, the one that I sent her, was something I wrote on my website maybe about a month or so ago about how AI can help writers. And I gave the example of using Microsoft Copilot to generate summaries of some research that I'm doing, and it exposed some information and little details that I wouldn't find if I was just looking at a long list of links. So that aspect was helpful. And then in terms of using an AI art program like DALL-E to create reference images, like I could enter what I want my character to look like, and it will spit out an image. And how that is useful is you want to make sure that you're consistent when you're describing a character. There's an old joke in writing that says roses are red, his eyes are blue, but you said they were brown on page 62.
I haven't heard that. I love that.
Yes. So
That's
having
great.
a reference, yes, it's an important thing for us to remember, and a reference image makes it easy for us to recall what a character is supposed to look like. And sometimes looking at a picture helps us to generate more ideas about
True.
how that character would act and how it would feel to be in that person's body. But
Interesting.
what generative AI cannot do is it cannot provide feeling and emotion. And it also suffers from the uncanny valley effect, where it's both looks too good and it looks off. It looks wrong. And I think on another one of your podcasts, you were talking about pictures with having too many fingers
Yes.
and misshapen letters.
Yes.
Text is supposed to be the easiest thing for technology to generate, but generative AI images can't do that.
It struggles. That's really an interesting part of when you see the graphical or image design that's done by artificial intelligence. And it feels like as a human, when you look at it, you do say that something, oh, that's it. And then you wait, what's wrong? It's like that, what's wrong with this picture? You know,
Right.
find the all the things that are wrong with this picture. And I like the ideas you've shared. Thank you for that. What I will do is in the comments
Mhm.
section of this live stream, I will post that link to that article so that
Okay.
others can read and understand exactly what you're talking about.
Well, thank
I
you.
I appreciate you sharing that. Matthew, thank you so much for being here today. I really want you to share some inspiration that you draw from. Are there favorite authors, artists, maybe movies, other type of content out there that you draw inspiration from?
Yes, I actually found the book that helped inspire me as a high school student. This is
Wow.
the edition of Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, and I read it for an AP English class. There are some school districts that definitely, and this would not put this on their reading
Right.
list. But what was great about Slaughterhouse-Five was it taught me two things. First of all, I liked how he combined humor and fantastical elements with drama and realism. And those are things that I like to incorporate in my books. So those are things that, like, even in a serious book like The Remainders, there are areas of humor and satire. So that's something that I got from Kurt Vonnegut Jr. The other thing was that he showed me that writing was attainable as a career. Because when you're in school, you're reading authors who people have classified as these greats, and they've been dead for
Right,
centuries.
right.
But Kurt Vonnegut was, at that time in the 70s, he was a contemporary writer. He was writing books. He was writing in science fiction, which was a popular genre. And he was just an ordinary person who was able to start a writing career. And it showed me that, yes, I too can be an author. So
I
that's
love that.
how Vonnegut inspires me.
I love that. Before I ask my last question, which is what's next for you, I want to touch on your table topic book.
Yeah.
And where can folks find this? And before we say that, though, please tell us, what is a table topic book? What is mastering table topics? What's that all about?
Well, it's something that I learned in Toastmasters. And if you are an author and you find yourself having to talk to the public a lot, Toastmasters is something that I recommend. And
Great.
Table Topics is impromptu speaking. We are asked a question and we have to come up with a 1 to 2 minute answer based on that question. So it was a great way of developing my skills in all sorts of situations, like a podcast like this.
Yes.
So this particular book takes you through the process of going from being asked a question to come up with a complete answer. And it includes 750 sample questions that you can use to try out your skills.
Oh,
And
I
I
love
will have
that.
copies of of this book along with
Oh,
Amiga and The
wonderful.
Remainders at the Beachtown Books event.
Yay. Well, thanks for that other plug. My guest today is Matthew Arnold Stern, author, technical writer, and now we know he's a Toastmaster as well.
Mhm.
What's next?
Well, I have a manuscript that's complete and that I'm going to be submitting again. It's called Christina's Portrait, and it was inspired by a something tragic that happened in my high school back in the 70s. And
Oh,
this book not only it's not an exact telling of that story because that goes into true crime, which is not my thing, but it
okay.
gives me a chance to touch on a lot of other tragedies, both past and present, including the COVID pandemic, which I don't
Wow.
think we as a society have had an adequate chance to grieve.
No. And it's ongoing. It's
Yes, it
it's
is
ongoing.
ongoing.
So
So,
I know many people that are that travel and come home and have COVID and they can't
yes.
retrace where they came in contact. Was it at the conference? Was it on the airplane? Was it at the hotel? Was it at the restaurant? We are still in the midst of it. It's
Yes, we
better,
are.
and we're getting better at not touching our face and washing our hands and being more cautious in areas where there are many people, but it's still there. And I agree with you. We have not really, somebody labeled it as a crisis in their life that changed them. And I hadn't come to that place yet where I admitted or thought, wow, I need to be thinking of this as a tragedy. I need to be
Yeah.
thinking. I just feels like when I'm, this is a horrible comparison, but when you're running from zombies, you don't really have a chance to think about, well, this is pretty horrible that I'm running from zombies, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. When you're still in the middle of it, you can't really say, oh, this is horrible. This is terrible, because we are still trying to navigate through it.
Yes. And I think the consequences of this will be felt for many, many years to come. And this book gives me an opportunity to talk about that and how it ties in with many other tragedies that have happened. And
Yeah.
again, it talks about connection and the need for empathy, for reaching out to people, even people we disagree with,
Yeah.
because that's how we rebuild. That's how we become whole.
I love that. Thank you so much, Matthew Arnold Stern, for being my guest today in the Beachtown series. We will see you on Sunday at Beachtown Books in San Clemente, where you will be sharing some of your writings. And it has been such a pleasure to have you here today. If people want to find you and your work, what's the best way to do that?
You can go to my website, which is Matthew Arnold Stern, that's one word.com. And it includes information about my books. There are links to my social media. And also, you can read my blog post about a lot of different subjects.
And we'll be sharing that link in the comments.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Matthew. I look forward to meeting you and getting my hands on your books.
Great. Thank you very much again for having me. And I look forward to seeing you and everybody else on Sunday at Beachtown Books.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye, all. We'll see you next time.